Hi, I'm Anita Tallman. I am the Client Success Manager over at Social Firestarter. And I talk a lot to attorneys that are interested in working with us for our SEO services. And one question that comes up often is that they want to get new office space, or they even want to get additional office space. And so what they're asking for is what they should factor in with looking at new office space or additional office space to ensure that they still get a good chance of being ranked really well for their Google My Business listing. So I want to go over a couple of things that you should keep in mind and factor in when you're looking for that office space. So the first thing I would do is to whatever city that you're targeting, I want you to bring up the map of that city. So in this case, I just chose Cleveland, Ohio, put that in, bring up Google Maps. And what you're looking at here is the border. You want to see this red thin line, and you want to determine what Google is defining as the city limits of that city that you're targeting. And in this case, you can see the light gray area is the area that is defined as Cleveland. So what you want to make sure you do is when you pick your office address, make sure it's within that area. You want to make sure you're not in this dark gray area, anything outside of the border of what Google's defined as Cleveland. And so that's one thing. The other thing is that you want to see where Google has actually put the label of the city. And in this case, which is very common, it actually says Cleveland in the downtown area. So ideally is to try to find office space that's close to where that label is. Now, because it's downtown, I know that rent is usually higher. There's also a lot more attorneys downtown. So I'm not saying you necessarily have to be exactly where the label is. But what I would say is that if you're looking at an area, let's say is just south of here, but you also are looking at an area that's maybe northeast, what is better is an area that's south. So something closer to the label. And again, doesn't necessarily have to be right where the label is. The other thing that you want to keep in mind is that Google has a filter that it uses. It's called the Possum filter. And what that means is that if Google sees two Google My Business listings of the same category and the same exact address, what it's going to do is filter all of them except one. So when you're looking for an address, you want to see how many other law firms are at that address. Ideally, you want to have a building that there's not any law firms at. But I know that's hard to do. So if there are other law firms, just make sure that they're not in the same practice area as you are. And some attorneys say, well, there's another law firm, but they're upstairs, they're on the second floor, they're in another suite. It doesn't matter. It's the same building. Google doesn't look at the suite number. It looks at the street number and it looks at the address. So you want to make sure that there's just not any other attorneys. And again, if there are, just make sure they do something completely different than what you do. All right. So hopefully that was helpful. If you have any questions, of course, reach out. Otherwise, if you find this helpful, I hope you share it. Thanks.